When every news article is talking about the next recession hitting our economy hard, it's more important than ever for students to be able to protect themselves from these kinds of economic downturns by learning how they happen and how they can be avoided by making smarter financial decisions now while they're still young and have plenty of time left. Our panel of experts will share their opinions on the topic Scholastic versus Financial Education, Preparing for the Recession-Hit Economy. Please welcome the panelists and the session moderator who will take us through this session.
Good morning, everyone. Excited to be for the day 3. How are you all feeling? Give some round of applause. I know it's been hard for the past 2 days, meeting a lot of people, lots of great information, and today we have a very important topic that we want to talk about, which is scholastic versus financial education, preparing for the recession-hit economy. My name is Kapush, and it's my honor and pleasure to be moderating this session today with our amazing lineup of panelists. And I'd like to introduce Velicki, Matthew Kraft, and J.Moore. I'd like to give each of them a chance to introduce themselves.
Good morning. I'm Matt Kraft from Mosaic Learning. I'm the Chief Operating Officer there. Been with the business since May of 19 and look forward to sharing with you our perspective on financial education and what we're doing to advance it across the country.
Good morning. I'm Danijel Velicki. I'm the CEO and founder of Sqwire. We're a financial wellness, financial literacy company. And we're just going into, we just built a platform for financial wellness in higher education. So we're excited about sharing our views here.
Good morning, I'm J.Moore. I come to you as a former middle school teacher, a community board member. I also was a director of ed for a workforce development agency, and I really love education.
Thank you. Thank you for a great introduction. And we all know that economy and financial situation in the country, whether it's a United States budget or your own personal budget, it affects your life, it affects your family, it affects everything. And we all hear a lot about the recession and interest rates rising and a lot of financial language that is out there. And the question is, how do we prepare the younger population of kids, students who are early on their career, who are early on their financial journey? How do we prepare them for the financial downturns in the economy? And this is what we're going to talk about today. And I would like to kick off with the first question and give everyone a chance to bring their perspective. So the question is, what do you think will be the biggest challenge facing students in a recession-hit economy? J.Moore, I would like to.
So my response to that would be, I think the most simple answer would be accessibility, right? And so if I'm a student and I can't pay for college or I can't pay for my lifestyle, that's a whole another layer of stress. And I'm not able to properly, I'm not able to really be able to show up in the world and not have to worry about my basic needs, which then goes into another set of issues in social class and things.
So I just read a great little few words that meant a lot. I think they really mean something to this conversation. We have so much information out there, but not enough wisdom. So when it comes to our kids, the problem is that they are seeing things, they're reading things. The media is scaring us into thinking that the world is ending, that everything's horrible, which puts them in a negative mindset towards the future, where everything's possible. I came from Croatia to the best country in the world with nothing. And I paid for my own college, I worked through college. Anything is possible in this country. So we have to understand that we have to be, you talk about positivity. We as parents, we as educators have to make these kids understand that they'll be okay, this is temporary, this too shall pass, and that they just have to think about the future and how to put themselves in the best possible situation. Not everybody's lucky enough to have the parents just that they can pay for everything, like me. So we just have to tell them, hey, there are ways that this can be done, but the scary part is the cost of education going up, obviously. We talked about that at breakfast. So I'm all about positivity. American dream is still alive, I think we have to share wisdom rather than overload with information.
Yeah, I would agree with all those remarks. I think they're all well spoken, well said. Let's be clear. The Federal Reserve has raised interest rates significantly to increase the cost of credit. They're starting to cut back on the balance sheet, and so 80% of the time when the Federal Reserve inverts the yield curve as they have, the past 6 to 9 months, there's a recession, within 2 years. And so the reality is that you have to look at the model and say, hey, the recession's coming, right? Kind of vocal inflection there. Yeah, it's coming. And so I think, how do we educate our children? I think it really depends on the age group, but there are sort of 3 universal truths that I'll say. The first one is that as parents, and I'm a parent of 2 12-year-olds, the important thing is that you educate your children on what this means. You educate your children on budgeting. You educate your children on, hey, like the money coming in has to be greater than the money going out, regardless of what's going on. The second thing is that you push for education as best you can, whether it's through volunteer activities in schools or through curriculum or talking, get involved with your children's teachers and say, hey, we're having these conversations around the dinner table. They need to be reinforced in school. And so it's kind of repeat. And so the children, understand that. And the third one is that you reach out. There are plenty, we're partnering with an organization called Kobach Finance on education for students on our platform as it relates to finance. Our fellow panelist here has a great platform. There are plenty of platforms out there, but you partner with organizations that have platforms, and so just like you order stuff on your phone through Amazon, you expect that there are other apps or other platforms that help enable these discussions, and then you extend them to your children. So for example, if your child is not on a path to go to college, you do not encourage them to do so. There's $1 trillion of outstanding student loan debt. The recession will just make it worse. Those payments will be higher, and so we have a platform that we talked about yesterday, Combobulate, that gives people 6-figure union trade jobs with less than a college degree education. So you look at alternative pathways for both degree completion, if necessary, and then also through VOTEC completion. And so you're not saddling your children when they're older with a ton of debt they can't pay back.
I just want to add one more thing. I apologize. And I know we'll get to this, but I think it's also important as well. So I second and agree with everything that has been spoken here. But in terms of a recession, if I'm a student that is already down on my luck and my family dynamic is not set up in that structure, that's another layer of socioeconomics that I have to work through as well, right? Which goes into diversity, which I know we spoke about, and there's been panels on that as well too. But I think we also have to take that in consideration as well too. So not only just learning in terms of how to work through credit or whatever the case may be, or going to college and applying for these things, I think we also have to not assume that every family or student is aware of that or knows how to even navigate that as well.
I love that. Thank you. I really like the quote from Danijel when he said, "There's a lot of information, but very little wise decisions." And I kind of relate to that in terms of going through different paperwork, like whether it's your insurance for your car, whether you're doing a lease or you're applying for the credit card, or you're just looking at your benefits at the HR department. There's a lot of language that we're not familiar with and lots and lots of information to go through and understand. And it's really hard and boring for a lot of people. So I feel like there is not enough wise decisions being made through that. Thank you. And we're going to move on to the next question. And we would like to learn more how you and your companies are addressing some of these issues that you mentioned earlier today. Matthew?
I can take it. Yeah, again, this is a huge freaking problem. Huge freaking problem. And so we're doing in terms of our contribution is that we're accelerating learning outcomes so that hundreds of thousands of students every year, whether they're on a VOTEC path in high school through an interim credentials program, or they're refugees, or they're in the prison populations in test markets in Missouri, or they're in their adulthood or early adulthood, we're giving them a pathway to jobs through union trades, again, with guaranteed incomes, guaranteed employment, $1 trillion of infrastructure to build in this country, a ton of high-level math if you're an electrician, and really meaningful work. And so in addition to that, partnering with companies like Kobach Finance and, looking forward to hearing more about our fellow panelists' company as well, partnering with companies that can help increase the reach of financial education. So we are not developing all the curriculum ourselves, we are enabling it through our platform, and we are enabling it through our reach. And so whether you're in high school, whether you're in K-12, whether you're an adult, that you can come to us as a single source of information for how to behave financially and for tips on how to communicate those things to your children.
Yeah, I love what you guys are doing. Just to teach options. College is not for everybody. And we talked about at breakfast. In my days, I'm 45. It used to be if you didn't go to college, you were almost ridiculed, like you were a lower type citizen. You were almost a failure because you went to be, a tech at a BMW plant or something. Those people are extremely smart, capable, and do really well. And we should highlight that. We should celebrate that rather than just, oh, you got to go and get a college and get $150,000 of debt to be a teacher. That doesn't make any financial sense either. So for us, my company is a passion project just because I'm a nerd and I looked at the problem that we have out there. For our parents, they worked for 30 years, got a gold watch and a pension and a Social Security for the rest of their life. They didn't have to worry about the decisions that we have to. Today, a Chevy is more than the price of their first house. Just a car, one car. God forbid that you want to have a nice house and do vacations and all the things that you have to do, but the decisions are, like you said, not made with the right information. And a lot of stuff is sold rather than being bought because you buy out of a position of strength. You get sold by the position of weakness. So we built a platform that's just pure education. It's not a Trojan horse. We got lucky enough to be contacted by the Air Force. So we do all of Air Force's education when it comes to financial wellness. The government has actually identified terminal learning objectives that the Air Force airmen and women have to go through. And you're talking 18-year-olds that are coming in through basic and have to learn about basic budgeting, about credit, about what happens in a divorce, first duty station, first promotion, retirement. They have these things that are defined. Why do we not have any of that? And it's way, our environment is way behind. And the companies that I have looked at over the past, and the reason why we started and built what we did was because they act as a Trojan horse. They come in and they say they're financial wellness, financial education, and then they try to sell you everything under the sun. And their profitability is based on loans, mortgages, debt, all that stuff that they're able to produce out of there. That's not positive. That's taken away from the trust in those companies and what they offer. So, we got a lot of work to do, but one of the things that I thought was a problem was that the higher education institutions were not going to want to talk to companies like us because it's red tape and all this stuff. I found out through this year, we did a whole bunch of testing. We have 4 presidents of colleges that have helped us design a college education product, and 2,000 students that we surveyed of how do they want to learn, what do they want to learn, all the resources that they need. So we're launching that January 1st. We're excited as heck because there's just nothing out there. And the price point is ridiculously low because we didn't want the barrier to be the dollar. We want that to be a solution. So there's a lot of opportunity, but we still have to educate. A lot of education that this is a possible thing now and it should be used.
I agree, and especially to the J.Moore's point, as he mentioned earlier, having accessible education is one of the key problem solvers that will help the industry.
So part of the work that I do back at home, I'm a talent development director with a scholarship program. And so that is a really cool way to say that post high school that we work with students to figure out what their career path is. And that meets workforce development and along with the things that we've discussed up here with the panel, but it also goes into college and career readiness, preparation, workplace culture, and just the readiness of the world, right? And so we surround our students with a lot of resources. We connect them with universities. We connect them with trades, apprenticeships, mentorship, which is a really, really big thing, which I'm sure we all can attest to that, right? And so if you have a mentor or a mentee, not only am I able to help you with the culture, let's say in finances, right? Of this is how we kind of operate things, but also on the other side of things, it's a teachable moment as well. This is the new generation that's coming in. These are the things that are important to them. If we don't keep them, we're going to lose them. Yes, our focus is finance, and we need to really figure out how to do this thing successfully. But at the same time, I need to be aware as an employer of these are the folks that are coming into our workforce.
Thank you. Excellent. Moving to the next question. It's interesting how we end up being here in this situation and actually talking today about this important topic. And I would like to ask each of you to provide your perspective on why is financial literacy education isn't part of the school programs? Maybe.
Yeah, I mean, you know, when we're working with school districts, we look at Common Core and things like that, and I think it's just lacking. For too long, it's been, you know, the thing we've kicked down the road, and now the road is here. We have $1 trillion of outstanding student loan debt or more. You know, credit card balances and credit card amounts and debt. Credit card debt is at the highest level, I think, in history. You know, interest rates are rising rapidly. This is bad. I don't say it's apocalyptic because we can still do something about it, but we need to act now. And so I don't think there's enough discussion of how we got here. You know, we can point to any number of reasons why, right? We printed too much money during COVID, at both Fed at Treasury and Treasury monetized the debt. That is something that is beyond our control. What is it within our control is immediately going home and educating, reaching out for resources, educating our children, reaching out in the community, living responsibly ourselves, setting ourselves as a model and encouraging our children to stop the sort of endless flow of borrowing from your future because your future is here today. And so in order to make your future better, you need to act financially responsible now.
Thank you, Matthew.
That's a great answer. So there's so many layers to this topic, and it's ridiculous. So again, I come from Croatia. I'm the first kid that went to college. I came with nothing, and again, was able to build something that's amazing. And what I've learned is that finances are emotional. They're extremely close to you, to a person. They come from dinner table conversations or lack thereof. And the problem is that if you think of the person that has to make the decision, it's either somebody, you know, in a municipality that's going to decide for high schools or a college university president that has to come with this forward. The issue is that's a misconception of what they think this stuff is. We still have to teach because they think it's about investments and about sales of products, and this misconception of it's truly empowerment rather than a product distribution tool. And the president's job is to protect the organization. So any time that they talk about anything financial, they feel like if they endorse somebody, bring a company in, that they're endorsing somebody, and what if something wrong happens? Well, doing nothing is way worse. But the problem is, like I said, there's a bunch of companies that have come out that are Trojan horse and want to sell stuff. I mean, I don't know how many of you, Capital One or whoever came on the campus and was giving out T-shirts and hats and stuff for credit card openings. I have still one of those, but not the hat, the credit card. But so that's one problem. The second problem is that this country has gone through so much from the financial outlook, and if you read the book Color of Law, the deliberate segregation of this country from after the Great Depression, and what has happened from a government standpoint and pushing the finances, it's disgusting and horrible, and that bad feeling is in so many people's mouths that still it's hard to pull it out, and that's what we're dealing with. And then it's just like, hey, it's an individual decision. You figure it out. There's Google. The problem is Google has as many opinions as we have armpits, and it's a horrible place to get any information. So now we're going towards, okay, this is something that we know we need, but we need companies that are true empowerment companies, true education and support rather than a sales tool. That's the paradigm that we have to go to.
Thank you.
It's a really good segue. So my answer, or I would say my reply to that, and go with me here. So let's look at the data of the country, right? If we break down the logistics. So during slavery, that's when technology kind of was forming itself, right? And as we all know, based on history, if you were a white male and you had property, slaves, and so on and so forth, that redeemed you as like a great citizen, right? So if that is our foundation of what it means to have wealth and have knowledge, if I'm just like my friend here says, if I'm going off of that principle, then in today's world, we're late to the party. We haven't caught up to, some of us have, but we haven't fully caught up to the fact of that we need to go back and look at the structure of what it means to really educate yourself about being financially stable and why this topic is important. And what does that look like for everybody, right? Because once again, if you look at it from a strict, just a race place or social economics, some of us may start off with more of an upper hand than others, so.
Interesting. And I have another question for you. do you think, and we talked about both sides, right? It's kind of responsibility both of educators and then people, trying to get the financial education. So where do you think should be the starting point? Should it come from the educators first, or should it come from people asking for that education?
I think all the above. I don't know. From my perspective, it's such a critical social issue. It's sort of like all the things we've been dealing with climate change and that sort of thing, right? That's an entire effort, right? That's a world effort. That's a parenting effort. That's a school effort. If you look at even something as simple as recycling, right? We worked with the Electrical Training Alliance to build the Electrical Vehicle Infrastructure Training Program, and so there's all these things where everyone is sort of coalescing around what to do about climate change because it's an existential threat. Financial education is not an existential threat. It could become one in terms of how we live our lives. And so I think the same type of mobilization and effort needs to happen at all levels if we're to pause from where we are today and make the outcome better tomorrow.
Yeah, you can have a doctor that is living paycheck to paycheck and in crazy debt, and you can have a teacher and an engineer that are saving 20% are going to be perfectly fine. It all comes to the understanding of the basic principles and the habits that people are able to build along the way and stick to them. We had a great experience where banks tried to build financial literacy product. Wells Fargo got out quickly because people didn't trust it, because they were like, you're just trying to sell me something else. So there's the trust of the institutions providing this, and then the other side is the organizations that are trying to look for it are saying, hey, we have Fidelity 401k, they offer that. No, they don't. They're not going to teach you about simple math or compound math on student loans, whether you should pay that off or not, on cars or credit or budget, or taking care of the elderly, or wills and trust or cars, or nothing. They're going to tell you, here's the option on this 401k mutual fund, and that's it. So the organizations are looking for it, but then they go, oh, we have Fidelity, so that's great. It's not even scratching the surface of what needs to happen. I think to your question, organizations need to get behind it first, because we need the endorsement, and for people to somebody to say, hey, this is something that everybody should be using. This is something that's really good for you. One of the best responses that we got from surveys of the companies and organizations that we work with, the feedback from the employees was that people felt that the organizations were giving them something that makes them better people, not just better employees, which then gives them a feeling of gratitude to the organization.
It's more of like a cultural.
Absolutely.
part.
Yeah, so when it comes to the college, we partner with North Carolina Wesleyan. They're the first pilot. They're rolling it out as a part of their, what I call Practical Skills Academy, so that they can tell the parents, we're not just going to make your child an engineer or a teacher or a business person. We're also going to make them a holistic person that understands how to read the employee manual, how to read their first paycheck, how to understand what a W-4 or W-9 is, how to understand the car insurance and the limits and all the things, so their foundation is straight. So that is a huge move, because if you can put a child into that place, right on the right track, they're not going to be the doctor in debt. They're probably going to be the other side.
Yeah, that's a great point. Like starting with the foundation, and then you start building on top of it. And
It's almost like you stole all my notes. Yeah, you just got all my notes. I was going to literally say the same thing. Love that for you. I just want to say reinforcement. So I second everything. So it needs to be reinforcement. It needs to be a culture thing as well, too, in order for it to be successful.
Thank you, Jay. And as we're planning our finances or planning our education or whatever that you might be planning, there's always a starting point where you are right now, and then you're always planning for the future. And I think in finance planning, it's one of the most important parts is to think what's going on right now, as well as plan for the future and plan strategically. And it leads me to the next question for our panelists, is what are the historical, current, and future implications of education given the current trends that we've discussed today?
I mean, the historical trends, are significant, right? So if you look at how the United States evolved and where we are today, and you look at the impacts of monetary and fiscal policy on our ability to make sure the next generation is better off than we are, the current risk is that won't be the case. And so we must do everything we can from a fiscal monetary policy perspective at a macroeconomic level, and then again in our homes, in our schools, and with our children, and everything that is in between, to make sure that that doesn't happen, because that would be the first time in a generation. It would be, from my perspective, tragic, because as our fellow panelists said, this is the greatest country in the world. So this is a problem that is solvable. If we look to the future, this is a problem that will be solved. But again, it requires a massive mobilization effort, no different than what we've done with climate change, no different than what we've done as we've mobilized for war and all those types of things. This is a war against poverty. This is a war against systemic poverty. Systemic poverty creates all the things we've talked about the last 3 days. I was on a panel yesterday about systemic prejudice and racism. That comes from poverty, and poverty exacerbates those trends. And so we need to make sure that today our call to action is, as parents, as educators, and as thought leaders in this business, and as attendees of this conference, that we leave here today and take action as we can to make sure the future is better than it could be otherwise.
Great point. By show of hands, how many of you have ever had a financial literacy class in college?
1, 2.
2? All right,
3.
that's awesome. So the trend, the historic thing is work, don't ask questions. How many of you lived in a family that you didn't talk about money? Nobody asked, God forbid that you ask somebody how much they made or what they save or what they owe. Like, it was just not a thing. It was a taboo theme. And now we have this psychological feeling that it's still a taboo thing, right? And then we moved into, like I said, from pensions and Social Securities and a little bit of savings for the caddy and go see the grandkids to, oh, by the way, there's this awesome, cool, shiny freaking thing that's called a 401k. It's badass, it's great, and we give you a 3% match. It's fantastic. But with this hand, you're not watching. They took away the security of a paycheck. And you know what the participation rate in 401ks with matches is in the United States of America? 28%. You don't think that companies know that? You don't think that that's a calculated move from a balance sheet standpoint of what the cost is for a pension compared to a match on a 401k for participants? And then where is the education on how to actually make that work? Can anybody answer a question as you retire today and you have a 401k, IRA, mutual fund, whatever? How do you know that for the rest of your life you're going to have a paycheck? Anybody talks about that? Advisors? No. It's all about, hey, here's your tolerance, here's your, diversification. You go from 80-20 to 20-80, you'll be fine. It's not that simple. But there's no teaching whatsoever on top of the increasing debt, increasing credit cards, increase just everything. And then today we're in a Reddit world where, the financial literacy is buy GameStop and whatever else stuff is out there. So you have these kids that are killing themselves because they can do whatever on Robinhood and wake up in the morning and owe $700,000. They don't understand what that means. And they end up with suicide. That's where we are today. There is no education. Why is Robinhood not offering that as a part of the service before you can invest to have to learn the basics of that investing? I reached out to them. They don't want to talk to me. They're making a lot of money. They're cool. It is a sickening situation that we're in right now. Too much information, not enough wisdom. I will keep repeating that. So it's a scary future unless big organizations, especially education sector, does not really adopt the financial literacy as a part of the curriculum, that you cannot graduate until you understand the basics of what you're going to be facing. Just imagine first 6 months after graduation, the decisions you have to make. It's crazy. So that's where we are.
Thank you, Dan.
I have a very simple answer. Just got to marry rich. You marry rich, all your problems are gone. All your problems are gone.
We're done.
Right. That's it. But just look at the data. I mean, we said it. So you have to look at the past, right? What has done what has worked, in the past, kind of what was set for the foundation, what was the transitional period, and then look at the trends today. And so if you kind of reflect at all of that, how do we continue to grow? How do we continue to be progressive? And what systems do we need to put in place in order for us to be successful? And not only for us to be successful, but for generations to come to be successful as well too. Because I think before, like you said, it was enough to go to work, find a good job, or be on salary, and you have the savings and you can afford this nice lifestyle. But I remember, I'm 34, and I remember as a kid, I think in the 90s, I think gas was like $1 or something, and now it's not. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, now it feels like it's $10.50 a gallon. But right now, depending on where you're at in the world, sometimes it's $6 or $7 a gallon, right? And so you have to figure out, that has to be taught in order to have like a comfortable lifestyle, so where you're not, you're not so stressed out about your social economics, is what I'm saying. So
Yeah, and it brings me to a really good, the point that you mentioned about not only establishing a foundation, but also being agile in the financial market where we were hit with a recession. And to your point about the increased price for the gas, it's something we had to adjust. We had to adjust our budgets as on our way, on our financial journey, we have to navigate those ups and downs and being agile. But if you don't have that foundation, you're not going to make the right decisions in order to navigate all of those downturns. So starting with the foundation and then being able to open and being able to be agile throughout your whole journey in order to be successful in the long run. And we have about 15 minutes, so we have the last question, and then I would like to open for the Q&A. And the last question we have is an interesting one. So I would like to ask each of you about looking into the future. What's your counterintuitive and have crazy prediction about the next 3 years in financial literacy education?
We're going to fix this freaking problem. That's my counterintuitive claim. We're gonna leave here and we're gonna fix this problem.
I'm ready. So it's not counterintuitive. We have 23 states that have passed the mandatory financial education in schools. There's a problem though. We did surveys with middle school, high school, college, 20-year-olds, 30-year-olds, 40-year-olds, 50-year-olds. Do you know who gives the least care about finances? Middle school and high school kids. There is no applicable or actionable stuff that they have to do with they don't have money. They're not really making money unless you have a kid that works at Chick-fil-A or In-N-Out or whatever. And they're paying for the trip to the mall or hanging out with their friends and that kind of stuff. So if you're teaching them now things that are going to matter 10, 15, 20 years from now, it's just white noise for them. It's not something that matters to them in this moment. They're worried about their crush, they're worried about their grades, they're worried about their friends. So we are not fixing the problem where the problem needs to be fixed. And then college is where you can make the most impact. Even the freshmen and sophomores don't really care that much. When you get into the junior and senior years, when they're starting to go to the job fairs, then they're starting to think where they're going to work and do internships, and they're starting to understand the future, that's where they actually care. And they are very interested about learning and understanding their voids in that knowledge. And then we have the scariest group is the 30 and 40-year-olds that feel ashamed, that feel like they're behind. They feel like they're going to be ridiculed if they ask questions and they don't know what they're talking about. So they choose to do nothing. And they think that they're just like, hey, whatever, it will work out. It's a scary data that we have out there. So I think the states are doing the right things by moving these mandates. I think they're the wrong level. I think I'm going to do everything. I mean, our 2023 projections as far as what we want to do is contact every college, tell them about the program, tell them what they can really do for their college students. And the price point is stupid. It's, I wanted to make it so it's just easy and it's there. So we hope to be a part of that solution.
Excellent, thank you.
I think we have to make it make sense, right? So it has to make sense to our future generation, our current students, our current scholars of why this is important. And not only finances, so math, but I think reading as well too, right? Because they have to be able to understand how to budget and case study and all of those things, right? So we just have to just make it make sense. And you could use the word educating, but it's more than educating. It's about being readiness and preparation and having workshops and making it a safe space so we feel comfortable as a whole to ask these different types of questions, and really, really putting it within our culture of this is kind of the standard. It's okay to ask these questions. This is the way that we're going. Exactly, it's okay. This is kind of how we need to operate in order for all of us to make this work.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Let's give a round of applause. And we're opening the Q&A session. So please, if you have any questions, please raise your hand and you can come right here to the microphone.
It's always me, isn't it, that has the question? It's always me. Thank you so much. That was really valuable. I'll try to make this not a long story. I teach film, television, and radio production in California. And I am a data geek as well, and I stopped relying on the Labor Bureau and ONET a long time ago because according to the Otis report, 86% of the people in my field are freelance workers. I would love to hear what we can do about that and how we can educate people in my field about how to survive and thrive when you're a gig worker. Thank you so much.
Love this question. So I'm an entrepreneur and I work for myself as a consultant. And so what I would say from personal experience is really it's about company culture, right? And also on the other side of things, companies, they have to understand you need us as creatives or consultants or folks that are on their own because there's a special talent that you have to have in order to stay afloat, right? That doesn't mean that there's not a level of professionalism, but I think it's really simple. It just comes down to company culture and having that dialogue and those conversations surrounding how do we get these creatives or these influencers or folks that are on the outside that have a different perspective, that are not brainwashed into this culture of what we live in, and how do we bring them into our company to make things a bit more progressive?
It's a great question. The problem is reach, and for them to understand that they are truly a business owner. And business owners have a different set of rules, different set of risks, different set of plans, different set of taxation, all kinds of stuff. Associations are the best way to get to them. So a perfect example, we partner with an organization that does that helps all the share ride people. They don't understand that if God forbid something happens in that car while they are there, that they also are personally liable for this situation. But when you get in those Uber and Lyft and all those cars, they're not your high-level kind of person that understand car insurance, LLCs, liability, protection, all the stuff that they should have, and they don't. So we are partnering with an organization that has them all together, discount, education, webinars, all this empowerment that they have to understand that there's so much that they have to do. So same thing, Virginia Automobile Dealer Association, National. The organizations, thankfully, are looking how to help their members even more. So we're hoping to find the organizations that care about their people and that they can help us with the reach and the benefit and the empowerment of their members. So it has to come from the top. That's where it's going to be the most impact.
I missed your name, I'm sorry. Oh, Sarah. Oh, Sarah. Hey, Sarah. Yeah, I want to make sure I answered your question, Sarah, so it's best to do that by saying your name. I think it's a really interesting question, and to be honest with you, if you look to next year and the recession, right, unemployment's going to go up, which means it's going to be more people that are going to be looking to the gig economy to kind of get through the recession. And so as someone who's already in that economy, what my opinion is, lock up long-term work, make your portfolio shine. If I look to who we hire as freelancers, Sarah, it's the people that, can I say badass? It's the people that are badasses, right? It's the people that really go out and have a strong network and a strong connection and a strong way of getting long-term business locked up. And so as other freelancers enter the marketplace, it doesn't matter, right? You can stand through the competition and sort of weather the storm as you look to getting through what is probably going to be, a tough 2-year period as unemployment probably doubles from this point.
Thank you. Next question, please. Thank you.
Hi. No.
Hey, what's your name?
Casanova.
Casanova?
Yeah.
Cool, man.
All right. So part of my job is I'm in charge of preparing first-year students for college. We have 3 goals at my institution: graduate on time, be financially independent, and leave with multiple job offers and/or a plan to go to a 4-year college. So the reason why I was hired was because one of our missions was integrating financial literacy, which we did. The battle I ran into was that we have students from the age of 15 to 70. And they all, if they plan on getting a certificate or a degree from us, they have to take this class. So we have the 15-year-olds like, I don't know what a job is. And then we have the 70-year-old going, I'm on Social Security. I already know how to do all this stuff. So I'm not worried about the younger ones. I can take care of them. But it's the older adults, like the people who have children or this is their second career. How can I make the financial literacy side relevant to them?
You have to have multiple offerings. It has to be a different way you speak to them. That's why, I mean, we have a fantastic platform that's just amazing, but we're building a completely different looking, different deliverables, small vignettes information, just the way that you speak about the information and the type of information you're talking about, it has to be different. Mm-hmm. Different, obviously, decisions, different point of life, different everything. It can't be just one thing. It's not one thing. I mean, all of us are independent and different, and although I have twins that are 12 as well, that's which is crazy. So we're a little bit closer to most people, but that journey is going to be different for everybody. So there has to be a way that whoever you're working with, first off, can deliver something that's scalable, and that's what we learned, and which is hugely important. People see financial literacy as like, it's cool. But when they come to a decision point, that's when they need it. And we've seen that with our usage and our engagement. It's like, okay, we get great engagement, but then we have people that blow through crazy amount of curriculum over the weekend, and we're like, hey, why are you doing that? Well, we're thinking about buying a house, or mom's potentially going to a nursing home, so we're trying to figure out all the wills and trust and Medicare and all the stuff. So it's decision time at the whatever event they're potentially dealing with. That's what they needed. Your 15, 16, 17-year-old, there's not so many events at that point. They might be buying a car or something like that. That's great. And then 7-year-old, oh my gosh, there's a lot going on with the inheritance, with the kids, with the taxes, with the planning and everything. So it has to be multiple different ways of delivery, different options, different curriculum.
Sums it up pretty well. Sums it up pretty well. Stole my answer again. If I could piggyback off that, I think it comes down to also, like you said, their needs, social and emotional needs. And so if I'm dealing with someone, let's say, that is in that 70, 60-year-old range, they probably are looking at how do I, maintain and keep my lifestyle, but also I may end up at a nursing home. I may want to take my grandkids for vacation. I think just the logic way, how do I apply this to them to make it make sense for them? The 15, 20-year-olds, I may want to go to a concert or travel or whatever the case may be, but just really laying the groundwork of this is how this can be applied to your life later on. So
thank you, Jay. We have I see we have one more question. We still have time for it, so we're gonna answer.
Good. I was gonna ask
quick.
if you have time. Thank you. My name is Ipek Williamson. Thank you for everything you shared. I agree with everything you said. And financial literacy is amazing if it could be taught at schools, that's for sure. And the thing that I want to ask you, what the parents at home can do to help their children to grow up with this notion, being aware of how to manage their finances.
I think I've said this before, I think the answer is simple, or can be simple, but it's more action oriented. So if you look at literacy and reading, they talk about reading to your child at night, right? For at least 20 minutes. I think that same principle can be applied when it comes to math and finances as well too. So personal story, one thing that helped me figure out how do I manage finances and bills and do all of those things, I distinctively remember seeing my parents, more so my mom, sitting at the table. The bills kind of are spread out at the table, but I was aware of it, and I did not know that wasn't the norm for most families until I got to college. Mm-hmm. And I had roommates that had really bad money management, but they just didn't see it. So my answer in short would be just do it with them and allow them to see you do it as well.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Jay.
Thank you.
It's actually a troubling statistic. 78% of the adults don't feel comfortable making any financial decisions. And then when we surveyed the students, 82% of students get their financial education from their parents. So we got this wheel just turning consistently to go, I don't know what we're doing.
Generations, right?
It's just generations, right? So like Jay said, his household was different. My household, I come from, my mom was a retail worker, my dad was an auto electrician. It was constant paycheck to paycheck. I had no idea what was going on. Now, I have a piggy banks for my kids that are split into donate, save, invest, and spend. And everything that they earn, we talk about what that means. And then at Christmas time, we talk about donate and where we want to donate. But it's just a regular conversation. It's not taboo. It's not weird. We talk about money. We talk about everything. The issue is that, again, parents are the ones that are stressed the most. I mean, the data from any source you want, especially post-COVID data, is that absenteeism, stress at work, efficiency, effectiveness are way down. And the number one cause is financial stress. So they don't feel like they are equipped to help and teach and support their children in that. So they're really hoping that there's another layer, but right now there's not. So it's a sad situation. Most people in here, hopefully we have those great conversations with our kids, and it's okay. It's okay to ask questions. It's okay when you have a problem and, hey, this is what we're dealing with. This is how we're solving it. This is how we're going to get out of it. It's all temporary. It's fine. But
Thank you, Daniel.
not everybody does that.
Matthew?
Yeah, Peck, it's good to see you again. I think the strongest thing we can do is lead by example. And so I can remember the most powerful thing in my life financially was when and I mentioned this yesterday, when my parents separated and then got divorced, and my mother made $25,000 a year with student loan debt. You can imagine the impact on the family. We had a family, literally, it was not a sticky note, but it was, a bigger sticky note. I don't know what that's called, a super sticky note, but, and I've got 15 seconds left, but it was basically the family P&L. And so there's this, sort of philosophies change around parenting, and I personally think helicopter parenting, which is kind of, in my opinion, taken away some of the responsibility from the children to be involved in this process, has to be modified and evolved to where we have transparency with our children. They understand what expenses are and how much money is coming in, and so they can be a part of that process. And so it's just not shock therapy when they say we can't afford to do something.
So can we say that making them a part of planning is the
Yes,
thing?
100%.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for the amazing questions. Thank you for taking the time to hear about our discussion. Matthew, Daniel, Jay, if you have any other questions, please follow up with them afterwards. And thank you, everyone, for listening to us.
Thank you.